Welcome to another episode of the Quip and Convo segment. You'll see my guest bio right after this. He's been in the Quip Corner's book corner before, so I'm looking forward to hearing his perspective on a quip in this month where the word of the month is love. Okay. And no, I won't give that away. But this is also a special edition. You'll need to listen in to know what I'm talking about. Welcome back to the Quip Corner, Steve.
Thank you.
I'm delighted that when I, reached out and asked if you could visit the Quip and Convo segment, that you said yes.
I love your quips, so I really wanted to be involved.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And you chose to talk about Quip 14. Yeah, Quip 14 from my second book, 101 Quips and Quotes that will strengthen and sweeten your marriage and family relationships. And the quip goes, in marriage, you're to complete and complement each other, not compete with each other. It helps you to complement each other now and again. So I'm curious, why did you choose this quip? And what are your thoughts about the quip?
Sure. Well, I chose it. I've been married, I guess, 37 years now. And I love being married. I was telling you that before we came on. I'm one of those people who loves being married.
Right.
And, I was married when we were 24. When you're 24 years old and you get married, you're embarking on something big, but you really don't know exactly what it's all about.
Okay.
And what I learned is that we were really taking two lives and trusting a new life to each other.
Yes.
And we were forming a family.
Okay.
And the family has grown. We've been fortunate. It has grown over the years, but we were forming a family. And what I've learned is that the strengths my wife brings complement the strengths I bring. And the strengths that I bring complement the things that she brings.
Yes.
And I saw a remarkable, and I know there's no coincidences in life, right? I saw a remarkable illustration of that just this morning, not with my marriage, but with another marriage. And we were at a funeral for someone whose son died. He was a young man. He was 21.
Oh.
And it was an absolutely beautiful funeral. They celebrated his life as beautifully as I've ever seen. But the way the two spouses handled their roles during the funeral was a beautiful illustration of this quip.
Okay.
Mother wrote and delivered a message about her son. She's a teacher, she's a speaker, and she knew that she could speak without emotionally falling apart.
Yeah.
The father supported the younger daughter during that talk and then sang with us in the choir because that was the way he wanted to honor his son. And together, that family honored them, and they took their strengths and blended them together. And that, to me, is how a good marriage works.
Yeah.
It's not the competing thing is really interesting because I'm a competitive person. I'm a highly driven, hard driven driving guy. I've calmed down as I got older, but I'm a hard driving guy. But I never once felt like I was competing with my wife. Instead, I felt like we had a partnership to build a life together.
Nice.
And what she does, she's one of these people that, first off, everybody meets her thinks she's, an angel. She's just a wonderful human being. She's one of these people that can talk softly and help you through a rough time and be there for people in that way. And I'm more like, hey, let me go pick up your groceries and drop your kids off and help you through your rough time that way.
Mm-hmm.
And together we make a good team to do things like that.
Man.
And raising our children, it was the same thing. I'm the, let's have the serious talk about how you handle this. She's the one that would figure out when something was wrong with one of the kids. And she had such a gentle way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
She would go get 3 books on different subjects and put them in front of a 13-year-old, one of our 13-year-old children, and say, I know one of these 3 things is bothering you. Which one is it?
Oh,
And the kid
wow.
would point at the book, and then she would have the discussion. And then I would be supportive and do run around and go talk to whoever. But it really, that to me is how a marriage works. And
Yes.
and don't misunderstand, I'm not a perfect husband, and it's not, we've had our bumps in the road. Don't,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, the other thing about the competing is that if you believe in a marriage, you have to outdo your spouse somehow. I guess that's the way to put it.
Mm.
When you live with somebody and you share every aspect of your life with that person,
Yeah.
up into and including seeing someone have a baby or someone have food poisoning or someone the 2 weeks after major surgery, whatever that is, you truly see that person in their worst situation.
Yes.
And if you went into it thinking, I could do that better, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I could do
Mm-hmm.
that better, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
better at doing X than this person,
Yeah.
then you turn that into a contentious situation
True.
instead of into a situation where together you get through something.
Yeah.
And I mean, in our marriage, and I don't want to get into the specifics because of confidentiality around some third parties, but in our marriage, we had an incredibly stressful time when we had some children that weren't ours living with us for a while.
Okay.
And I remember when that started, I said to myself, one of 2 things is going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to tear my marriage apart, or it's going to get stronger.
Okay.
And fortunately, it got stronger. And the reason is that one, we understood what our strengths were
Mm-hmm.
in working with those children. And number two, we understood where the other person's weak spots were and made sure they got respite when they needed it.
Hmm.
And it was really, and again, I'm not purporting to have a perfect marriage or be a perfect person or anything like that. It's just that particular season of our life really brought us closer.
Yeah.
And we also, we would every night at 7:30, we would just sit in the bed for half an hour and debrief. Just like
Woo.
what happened today? What went on? And
Yes.
sometimes we just stare into space. The debrief would just be silence. But that to me, and you have to learn that
Yes.
because except in very rare circumstances, when you get married, when like I did, when you're 24 years old, the hardest things you're figuring out are where you're going to live and how you're going to do the food thing and work out the
Yes.
toothpaste situation and all that.
Yes.
Uh, but then life comes along and parents get
Yes.
older and you have kids. And
Yes.
it's really important that you're there supporting each other and not trying to outdo each other
Yes.
and giving each other the space to grow. Um,
Mm.
because I think it's really critical that you understand, not you, but that it's understood at the beginning of marriage that in 10 years, heck, in 2 years, in 10 years, in 30 years, you're not going to be the same people.
Yes.
Um, and you have to respect that growth is going to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've been the most fortunate thing in my marriage, and I think this gets to the compliment thing. Compliment thing. I don't mean to be trivial about your quip. The compliment concept. That's a better way to put
Yes.
it. To
Yeah.
the compliment concept is that we have also had a faith journey. It's gone on basically the same arc.
Nice.
And we've been very, very fortunate that, God allowed that because
Mhm.
sometimes it doesn't work that way.
Work out that way.
And, and part of it might just been because we've been through so many trials together. We've been some great times too. Don't just, or my marriage has had
Yes. Yeah.
very
The ups
joyous
and
times
downs.
also.
Yeah.
ups
Yeah.
and downs, but we've been through some tough seasons and we've just on to each other
Mm-hmm.
and gotten through that.
Yeah.
And I think this is also part of the compliment
Yeah.
concept is that you hold each other accountable, but you do it in a loving way. You don't
Mm.
do it in a I got you way. I'll give you a great example. This is very early in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when my wife, in a very loving way, got me out of a workaholic mode.
Nice.
And I mean, I always have worked hard and I always will work hard because I believe part of the reason we're here is to work and to accomplish things. But she got me to the point where I didn't define myself through that,
Mm.
through the work and through the career.
Yes.
And it happened very early on. I mean, this didn't take long because I'm nothing if I'm not self-aware. So it didn't take her long to guide me that way. And I don't
Yeah.
think she married me thinking I'm going to change this guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She just
Mm-hmm.
married me thinking, if this is what we need to have together, and if we're going to entrust our lives to each other, because that's really what happens, is
Yeah.
you trust your lives to each other when you decide to be married.
Yeah.
It's not a whim. It's not a romantic weekend. It's a marriage. After every wedding comes a marriage.
Yes.
And that working together and understanding what you each bring,
Mm-hmm.
I think is really important. And for guys, now I'll speak specifically for men, sometimes you have to check your ego at the door. And this is, I'll give you a trivial example. My wife is so much better at negotiation than I am, that she's the one that goes to the car dealer and negotiates the price.
Wow.
Um, because I'll immediately go, just split the difference. I don't have the time for this. I don't want to do this. I don't like the pressure or anything. I have had car salespeople tell me that she's the hardest negotiator they've ever worked with. And is she, because she's got a number or she's got a
Yes.
concept.
She drives a
But
bargain.
I had to check my ego, right? I mean, do you know what it's like sometimes? Oh, Kathy
Yes.
buys all the cars in our family,
Yes. Yeah.
but there's other things that she entrusts with me that
Mm-hmm.
I guess in a classical division of labor or however you want to
Yeah.
say it, you know, she might um, have done. And I just thought of one other thing, if I can add one more thing too.
Yes, please.
Something that she did a remarkable job of was when we first had our children and they were very young.
Mm-hmm.
She was home with the kids, but she worked in a hospital. She would work every third weekend. And so I would have the children every third weekend when they
Yeah.
would, from the teeniest little things. And I know there were days when she was like, why is that kid wearing that? Or why is that kid doing that? Or but she understood that I had a way I wanted to be a parent and not in big picture things, but things that
Yes,
I
yes,
want.
yes.
Like I'll give you a dumb example. I love those things, those onesie things that little kids wear.
Yes,
And
yes. They're
I would
cute.
always have my kids, I would always have my kids in jeans and a white onesie on the weekends because that would be so much fun to then play with. And I know she would rather they were a little more dressed, but she would say they're happy, they're close with their father, and they're safe when I come home. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
I believe that's compliment
Yes.
versus competition.
Yes.
And I've done the same thing going other ways. And so that's what I mean is
Yeah.
you respect the other person and you have to have your guardrails, right? I mean, your children have to be safe, obviously. If
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
unsafe, you
Yeah.
got to draw the line.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if going back to my career thing, if it's at the point where I don't feel like I got to support the family, then I got to work harder, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But we've really worked and we've had to work together to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never thought of marriage as work. People always say marriage is hard work. Maybe my wife might have thought of marriage as work, but I do not think of marriage as work. I see it as a journey.
Yes, it is.
And and we've never I don't think we've ever been really close to having any kind of problem with our marriage that was going to threaten the marriage, but we've had things we've got to work out.
Yeah, sure.
And we just work it out, and we communicate and we talk. And we've learned also recently, over the last 5 years, say, that how important is it? Sometimes it's just not even important to bring up something. Just let it go. Let it
Yeah.
sit. And usually it goes away. And if it's because usually when you are with someone, as much as two married people are going to be cranky. People are going to be unreasonably whatever. And most of the time, the reason for that has nothing to do with the other person in the room.
Yeah.
So if you just let it diffuse, you work through the problem. And I think
Yeah.
that's complimenting also.
Yeah.
And the other part of the quip, is it okay if I keep going for another minute or
Yes,
two?
please.
Okay.
Please.
That complement each other.
Yes.
And there's the complimenting, but there's also compliment.
Yes.
You do this really well.
Yeah.
You do that really well. I'm really glad you're here for this. I think it's easy to forget to do that after a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what that time is, but we've always worked to do that with each other. And and the other thing that really isn't directly related to the quip, but we're also very careful to celebrate the big things together: anniversaries, birthdays. I mean, I know people who say we don't even remember what our anniversary is anymore, and that to me is a big day.
Yes, it is.
Whatever sometimes you don't do anything crazy fancy, but you do remember that it's
You
your
remember the
anniversary.
day. Yeah. You recall.
Yeah, and then birthdays and all of that, and I think all of that works together to complement and to learn. A really interesting thing in marriage too is, like, what do people like for gifts? Because
Yes.
I know some people who everything is a big gift. I mean,
Yes.
Valentine's Day is a big gift. Well, with us, I mean, some things are big gifts, but sometimes it's just time or
Yeah.
flowers or dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And especially now, because you get to a certain point and you don't want any more stuff anyways. And
Exactly. You're like, where am I gonna?
yeah,
What am I gonna do with it? Okay, I'll
I
regift
don't
it. So
I don't need anything. So all of that it's a big organism, the
yeah,
marriage is.
it is.
And it needs to be a priority in your life.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it is the priority, but it needs to be a priority.
Yeah.
And respect for the other person, I think, is what leads to these things you're talking about in your quip: the
Yeah.
compliment, the
Yeah.
no competition.
Yeah.
And respect is so important. People like to use the word tolerance, and I don't like the word tolerance,
No, no,
because
I don't. Yeah.
tolerance to me means I'll endure you, right?
Exactly. Painfully.
Yeah. Yeah. Respect means I'm going to appreciate who you
Choice.
are and what
Yes.
you can bring.
Choice. Yeah.
And now, fortunately, we haven't had any of the huge events that sometimes tear marriages apart, like
Mm.
infidelity or anything like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, but we just keep working through it. And
Mm-hmm.
so your quip really resonated with me for all those reasons that I just kind of
Yeah.
spewed while you
Yeah.
while you were listening.
Yeah.
But I hope that made sense, because I kind of went on there.
Yeah. The thing about it is every marriage is different, but to your point, you need to ask yourself, what's important here?
Hmm.
So thinking about the weekends when your wife worked and you had to take care of the children, what's important here? My children are happy. My children are safe. Here's if they're in red and blue. Okay,
Right.
and too many times I find that we major on the minor and
Right.
create problems that don't need to exist.
I agree. I think not only do we create problems that don't need to exist, but sometimes we have problems that weren't even there. And
Mm,
you invent them.
that's
And
true.
and with me, a lot of times that's just because some silly ego thing, right? I have to be right, or I have to this, or I have to that.
Yeah.
And when you really think about what's important, there's a great saying I've heard that very rarely is something that's urgent important.
Mm-hmm.
And very rarely is something important urgent.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I feel a sense of urgency, sometimes I'm like, okay, how important is this? And if something really big is out there, I'm like, can I do anything about this now?
Yeah.
And if I can't, then I'll back off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, either way on that. And it's shocking how many times something important is not urgent in that, meaning that it's still important, but you really can't do anything about it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to, both sides are going to be so chaotic and so stressed that it's just going to lead to conflict.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. Or I certainly don't want it.
Don't
And
want it.
that's kind of what you were talking about. How important, very little in life is super important when you think about it.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can get worked up about the smallest things. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at the news and there's people going on for 6 pages about somebody's Twitter post. I mean,
You're like, please. So,
don't read it.
so, I like the fact that, you talk generally and then you talked, as the husband. What advice do you have for men, please, when it comes to marriage?
For men,
Yes.
I think the most important thing outside of respecting your wife for who she is,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mean that as a trite thing.
Yeah.
You have to respect your wife for who she is and communicate if you feel like she's not respecting you for who you are, but
Yeah.
but in a loving way, not in a I got you way. I
Mm-hmm.
told you you were going to be like this. I think the most important thing is to always remember that she was once your girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
and continue to date your wife and
Mm.
continue to respect the fact that you fell in love with her for some number of reasons.
Yeah.
And even if life has led us in a certain way, those reasons, those fundamentals, that foundation is still there.
Yeah.
And respect that foundation and honor that foundation and honor your wife. And I did not learn this the hard way. I fortunately went into my marriage this way.
Mm.
If you've got something to say, don't do it in front of other people. And never make fun of your wife in front of other people.
Mm.
I once said to somebody at work, my wife makes the best apple pie I've ever had, which I thought was an innocuous a comment as a human being could make. And the person said, I've never heard you say a negative thing about your wife. And I'm like, well, yeah, we work together. I'm not going to come in here and talk to you, I mean, but apparently some people do.
Oh, yeah,
And
lots of people
yeah,
do,
and again, this
sadly.
isn't, I'm not trying to give some big reflection on me I've made plenty of stupid mistakes as a
Oh,
husband.
yeah.
I mean,
Don't we all? Don't we
and,
all?
and, and some of them have been what I would call rookie mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
After you've been
Mm-hmm.
married 15 years, you should forget the comment about X, but sometimes I do by mistake.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I'm going to take what I just said up to a higher level, respecting the sanctity of your marriage, that your marriage is truly a partnership and a union with her, and you have to be together, not
Mm-hmm.
divided,
Mm-hmm.
and not doing anything to pull that apart in front of other people
Yeah.
or or trying to get support from other people about why this and all that. I think that would be my advice. And always remember to date your wife. Always. Even if it's when the kids are little, sometimes it's at 9 o'clock at night, you light a candle and put out cheese and crackers and you watch an hour of something on TV, but you make that one a little bit more special because you
Yeah.
can't always go out, right? I mean, you
That's
just
true.
can't.
Yeah.
And so just try anything to make things special sometimes. And
Yes.
I know this is kind of off your quip, but if you do that, I think it goes a long way.
Yes.
And my wife does the same thing for me. This isn't like I'm not in a one-way street marriage. I mean,
Yes.
she does the same thing
Exactly.
for me.
Yeah.
And she knows the things I really enjoy, and I know the things she
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy, and we respect that with each other. So I think I answered your question, but I got off the quip, so I apologize.
No. Well, dare I say, I'd love to have you in the Quip and Convo segment again. If you're open to it, you're most welcome to please join.
Anytime,
Thank you so
anytime.
much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I really appreciate, all that you've shared, even giving live examples. I truly appreciate it, Steve. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you. It's a privilege to be on here, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. That was
All right.
excellent. That was excellent. That was excellent. So thank you so, so much.
Oh,
Um,
this was so much fun. I mean, it really is. It's fun.
yes. So we should do
So
it again.
yeah, I will. I'll make a little note, like in a few months, to follow up. And
Yes. Well, thank you for joining Steve and I. Lots of nuggets he dropped along the way. And yes, I told you it was a special edition. Did you hear all the daddy tips he dropped along the way? What men need to do as fathers and husbands. Well, dare I say, happy Father's Day to all the amazing fathers, all the amazing husbands out there. I pray, similar to the title of my book, that your marriage and family relationships will be strong. See you in another episode of the Quip Corner. God bless you. Bye now.